He wakes to a harsh truth. After 30 years of service, he's been discarded like a hero no longer needed. The story paints him as a fallen legend at his lowest point, entering old age under deep despair. A gentle girl calls him her master, while the narration hints that Wall is somehow tied to a striking, unusual fate. Then, the scene snaps back to the capital and reveals where it all truly began. In the royal hall, hero Alec kneels as he is thanked for his many years of service. Alec is formally informed that, as of today, he is stripped of the title of hero. Blindsided by the decree, Alec can only recoil at how coldly sudden it is. He quickly senses the likely cause and wonders if the monsters have broken loose again. Facing the throne, he realizes the real issue is the recent drop in subjugation numbers and the rise in missing monsters. Left speechless, Alec is then struck with the blunt verdict that he has simply grown old. He is told that a hero is a special being personally chosen by the king. The judgment continues as he is coldly informed that someone powerless like him is now worthless. A bag of 100 gold coins is handed to him as the king's so-called final mercy. Alec desperately protests that, without heroes, the kingdom itself will be in danger. Before he can even process that, the speaker casually reveals that the next hero is already here, and the doors swing open. The newcomer, Marius, greets Alec with a smile and thanks him as a former hero. As Marius Forelight steps forward, he is introduced as the new hero and adds that Alec once helped him on a quest. Marius calmly explains that he has long been known as the next hero and assures Alec that he will carry the role properly. He mentions the monsters Alec once repelled and says he somehow managed to defeat them afterward. Alec reflects that he has lived as a hero since the age of 9 and wonders if the drop in monster subjugation was ever truly sudden. Marius keeps smiling even as he insists that he is a good young man. Alec remembers that if Marius became the hero, he would be humble and capable, someone who had supported them in battle, and that despite his noble birth he had accepted Alec's poor background and entrusted the rest to him. Alec bitterly realizes that once this man became the hero, his own dismissal was always inevitable. The king apologizes to Alec and tells him to hand over the hero's medal and get some rest, while Alec quietly forces himself to accept it. Alec leaves the castle alone and steps into the street in numb silence. Marius follows after him and apologizes for going out of his way to see Alec off, wearing a faintly smug look. Alec answers with a steady smile, telling Marius to do his best in his place and calling him the new hero before moving to leave. Marius all of a sudden snaps and complains that Alec's way of speaking is disrespectful. He declares that Alec is no longer a hero and says that someone of low birth has no right to speak to a noble like him. Marius drops all pretense, sneering that old men like Alec cling to the hero's seat, while only young, talented, handsome men like himself deserve important work and the right to command. Alec desperately stops Marius and reminds him that he taught him how to defeat monsters, asking him to at least share some of the credit for those kills for Alec's sake. Marius abruptly turns vicious and flatly tells Alec that he had always found him unbearable. Marius violently hurls Alec away, the impact ringing through the area. Looking down on him, Marius coldly says that poor people should just die in disgrace. As Alec walks away, Marius casually adds that all of the equipment was supplied by the country and orders him to leave it in front of the door. From a distance, Marius warns that if Alec steals even one piece, he will personally hunt him down as the hero. The door slams shut behind Alec, cutting him off for good. Left alone in the open street, Alec collapses onto a bench as townspeople pass him by. Exhausted and stunned, Alec lets out a long sigh as the full weight of everything crashes down on him. He remembers that his parents died when he was young and realizes he has no home to return to, leaving him to wonder where he can even go now. Alec notices that the 100 gold coins left to him are still in his possession, and the realization makes him jolt upright. As he looks closer, Alec judges that the coins alone cannot possibly be worth 1,000,000 gort, then notices a letter and realizes it is from the king. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Tears begin to fall onto the letter as Alec silently takes in the king's words. Alec remembers that the king had cherished him like a real son after his parents died, and he blames himself for failing to live up to that faith. He forces himself to shift his mindset, reminding himself that he has lost his job but gained freedom, and decides he must figure out how to survive on the 1,000,000 gort. Then a sudden thought hits him as he remembers the condition tied to a hero's holy power, and he realizes he may finally be free of that burden. As he walks through town, Alec recalls the claim that a hero loses holy power if that condition is not maintained. With that in mind, Alec awkwardly considers how his life choices may change now that he is no longer a hero, but the thought instantly leaves him flustered. He quickly pushes the idea away and tells himself that, more importantly, he needs to build enough common sense to survive. Sitting alone on a bench, Alec all of a sudden hears someone nearby call a man their master, and the word makes him freeze as the whole scene instantly feels wrong. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Flushed and rattled, Alec clenches his fist as he realizes exactly what kind of place this is. He recalls the idea of finding someone dependable who would not betray him and who could help him manage daily life, though even the thought weighs heavily on him. As he starts walking, Alec hesitates and wonders if he should really go through with it. Moments later, he finds himself face to face with a slave trader, while the old man calmly urges him to continue. The trader recognizes him as a hero and politely asks what service he can offer. Alec right away presses forward and asks whether the man knows who he is. Alec bluntly explains that he came to buy a slave now that he is no longer a hero. Hearing that Alec is a former hero, the trader reacts with clear interest as the air grows even tenser. The trader praises Alec as sensible and says a person cannot survive without knowing basic right from left. The trader understands that Alec came to buy a slave and adds that a former hero's only work now is as an adventurer. He explains that Alec needs a capable slave who can handle everyday matters and, if possible, possesses solid common sense. The trader all of a sudden makes the conversation more uncomfortable, and Alec recoils in shock. Flustered and upset, Alec firmly rejects the crude suggestion and calls the trader rude. Ignoring Alec's discomfort, the trader cheerfully promises to bring him a slave he believes will suit him perfectly, and Alec can only nervously tell him to be careful. Alec anxiously thinks that he only wanted someone with common sense to advise him first and worries this may already be spiraling out of control. The trader snaps his fingers and loudly calls for the girls to come out. Several women are brought in and presented before Alec as the selection begins. The first candidate is introduced as an elf adventurer skilled in search and exploration, with a listed price of 1 million and a condition of 30,000 gort. The trader presents the second candidate as a highly skilled human explorer and former thief with deep knowledge of the underworld, pricing her at 6 million gort. He then introduces a third option, an elf once tied to criminal activity, and explains that as an unconditional slave she will obey nearly any order with a price of 7 million gort. The final candidate is an elderly woman said to be unmatched in medicine and magic and unrivaled in common sense, but her condition comes with a crushing cost ranging from 10 million to 17 million gort per month. Seeing the old woman among the candidates, Alec blurts out in disbelief that an elderly woman has somehow been mixed into the lineup. The trader calmly insists that every slave shown to Alec is highly recommended, while Alec flusters and protests that this is not what he meant at all. As Alec urgently whispers that the last one is obviously an old woman and that the whole selection has gone way too far, the trader sighs that this is exactly why people with no common sense are troublesome. The trader defensively claims that a woman always keeps a girl's heart no matter her age, and Alec stares at him in shock that he would even say that. Convinced the trader is doing this on purpose while pretending to misunderstand common sense, Alec grabs at him and demands he stop fooling around. Just as the argument starts to boil over, the trader all of a sudden says there is actually one more exceptional woman, leaving Alec stunned. He dramatically calls for the next girl to step forward, presenting her as the crown jewel of the day's selection. The final candidate steps forward, and Alec stares as a beautiful woman appears before him with a strangely striking presence. Both of them flush at the sight, and the woman looks startled while Alec is left visibly shaken. The trader explains that a healer is essential for adventurers, adds that she once served as a priestess and has plenty of common sense, and presents her as an unconditional slave priced at 10 million gort. Alec freezes in confusion and blurts out that what he just heard somehow sounds personally relevant to him. The trader praises her ability, while Alec, still overwhelmed by the situation, starts worrying that this final option is far too much. Alec asks what the difference is between a conditional slave and an unconditional slave, and the trader explains that a conditional slave judges her own labor and acts accordingly. The trader then begins clarifying that an unconditional slave works by a different rule. Leaning in with a whisper, the trader starts listing examples of the orders such a slave would obey, and the explanation turns the air all of a sudden awkward and deeply uncomfortable for Alec. As Alec imagines what buying the third or fifth slave might imply, the scene grows even more uncomfortable and his spots spiral in embarrassment. Panicking, Alec insists he is not looking for slaves for that kind of purpose, while the trader bluntly suggests that was obviously the point all along. The old trader challenges Alec, asking why a hero would come to a place like this in the first place. Alec answers that he came because he wanted a slave with common sense. The trader sarcastically laments that a true hero named Marius is being treated so poorly and mocks the country for lacking judgment, leaving Alec confused. Startled, Alec demands to know what he means and asks how he knows about Marius. The trader coldly replies that Alec is not the only one who knows nothing. As Alec tries to assert his own worth, the priestess all of a sudden steps forward and urgently tells him to buy her. Alec right away refuses, saying she is far too expensive at 10 million gort, while the trader laughs and ridicules the former hero. Alec nervously weighs the options, thinking the elf likely lacks common sense, The second girl is a former thief who might drag him into trouble, and the third being unconditional makes him deeply uneasy about what that could mean. His thoughts continue as he concludes that the fifth choice is out of the question, and that a slave buried in debt would not have any common sense either. Alec all of a sudden notices the contradiction and asks why the fifth one is carrying debt at all, catching the trader's attention. The priestess explains that she had been running an orphanage, but worsening conditions made it impossible to keep going, and the trader adds that he covered her debts and brought her here. Alec remembers being told the old woman likely sacrificed herself to protect the children, and the thought leaves him visibly torn. He realizes a healer is indispensable for adventuring and that she seems to have the common sense he wants, then gets flustered by her presence. Alec panics internally, thinking that if he buys her for 10 million gort, he will burn through his entire fortune and have nothing left. Even so, he steels himself and decides he has to swallow his pride. Alec admits she seems like an incredible slave, but says buying her would leave him broke, so he awkwardly asks the trader to lower the price a little. The trader right away shuts him down, declaring there is no room for negotiation and calling the request absurd. Alec freezes in disbelief and bitterly repeats that the trader was the one who said it. He clenches his fist, forces himself to calm down, and realizes the only way to win is to turn the trader's own words against him. The trader insults Alec as dim-witted for wanting to buy such a valuable slave, while the priestess stands silently beside him and Alec stares back in tense silence. The trader snaps at Alec and mockingly realizes he is trying to negotiate the price of a slave. Alec coldly asks what the trader means by that. Alec presses him, asking if he can negotiate the price, and the trader angrily insists he obviously can, while demanding to know who Alec thinks he is talking to. Alec right away says that in that case he will hire the trader for 100,000 gort for 10 minutes, and says his job will be to negotiate the slave's price. The trader is left stunned by the demand to negotiate the price himself, while the other man blurts out a panicked refusal. The priestess watches in flustered disbelief and wonders if Alec would really go that far just for her. Alec looms over the trader and reminds him that he was talking big, then presses him by asking if he can actually do it. With a tense grin, Alec pushes further and asks whether he was only bragging without being able to back it up. The trader bursts into loud laughter, astonished that Alec is actually trying to hire him to handle the negotiation. As Alec stands confidently, the trader admits in surprise that he had taken him for a hopeless case, but now sees that he is unexpectedly sharp. The trader laughs harder than he has in years and openly declares that he likes Alec. The other man panics and urgently warns Cordelia that this has become a serious problem. Cordelia reminds the trader that there are no complaints now and asks if he really intends to deny himself any profit at the final stage of the deal. The trader breaks into a nervous sweat, gulps, and quickly says he understands. Cordelia leans in and quietly pressures him, and after a brief pause, he starts rethinking the price. While Alec reacts in confusion to what the old woman just said, the trader hesitantly lowers the amount to 850. Under mounting pressure, the trader drops the offer further and says he will settle for 600, insisting he cannot go any lower. As Alec and the others stare, the priestess calmly explains that this is likely the limit because the dealer is already covering the slave trader's debt. Alec stares in surprise and wonders whether this outcome is really acceptable for a former hero. Alec gives a satisfied response, and Cordelia tells him he has survived longer than an elf for a reason, praising his ability despite his big talk. The trader keeps laughing and says Alec cannot hope to win if he brings Cordelia into the negotiation. Alec argues that pulling off the best possible result in only a few minutes is exactly the kind of thinking expected from a former hero. Still chuckling, the trader admits that he has not had this much fun in years. The former priestess shyly asks whether she will really be alright. Alec tells her she should be able to find work outside the profession she had in the guild, and she nervously thanks him over and over. She introduces herself as Lishia and promises to do everything she can for her master. Flustered but sincere, Alec says he is looking forward to working with Lishia. She answers with an eager yes at once. Lishia steps in with bright excitement and says she is looking forward to it too, catching Alec off guard. As they leave together, the trader calls after them and asks to be entertained again someday because he is already looking forward to it. Alec points out that the item is expensive and probably will not be used often. Cordelia explains that rejuvenation potions can also be made from resurrection leaves, leaving Alec stunned by the revelation. The trader says 15 years of rejuvenation would cost 250 million gort, and Alec is horrified while the trader notes that the price is still far too high. The trader quietly pressures Alec by suggesting that having another person around could be useful when needed, making the moment deeply uncomfortable. Alec tells himself that although the cost is enormous, the potion might become useful someday. As Alec hesitates, Lishia gently asks what is wrong, calling him her master. Alec right away scolds himself and decides he should focus on what he came here with Lishia to do. Flustered, Alec tells Lishia they are leaving and says he will think about the rejuvenation potion later, and she quickly agrees. Just as they move to go, Lishia nervously asks him to wait a moment. With Alec and the trader watching, Lishia all of a sudden bows deeply in a formal gesture. As they leave the shop, the trader calls out for them to take care, while Alec walks through town beside Lishia and the mood stays strangely tense. Lishia stays close with a happy expression, and Alec is visibly rattled by how awkward the situation all of a sudden feels in public. Alec panics internally, admitting that the tension is so intense he can barely process whether this is even real. Lishia quietly wonders if it is really acceptable for her to feel this happy, revealing how deeply the moment is affecting her. Alec recalls that Lishia is supposed to be an unconditional slave, then convinces himself that this must mean he is allowed to invite her along. Lishia innocently asks her master what they should do next, and Alec jolts in alarm at the sudden question. Flustered, Alec blurts out that it is already late and suggests they should rest for the day. Lishia right away points out a cheap inn nearby and eagerly offers it as their next stop. Alec instantly shuts that idea down with a firm refusal. In a sweaty panic, Alec awkwardly proposes staying at a somewhat better inn for the night instead, while trying to keep himself together. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Alec is hit by the shock of the moment and internally wonders if any of this is really happening. Night falls as they arrive at a large and impressive inn. The luxurious interior crushes them with its atmosphere as they step into a room far grander than expected. Lishia nervously points out that the room looks very expensive, and Alec stiffly admits it is the most expensive option. Forcing himself through the embarrassment, Alec reveals that he booked the suite despite the outrageous cost. Alec resolves that since this is his first night traveling with Lishia, he wants to handle it carefully. Lishia, flushed and emotional, says she wants to treasure this moment. Alec right away senses the situation becoming far too tense and obvious, and he panics at how personal the atmosphere has become. As Alec reels in alarm, Lishia softly calls him master, making the tension even harder to ignore. Alec stiffly suggests that they should head to the room, and Lishia right away agrees in a flustered voice. They sit side by side on the room in heavy silence, both visibly tense and too embarrassed to look at each other. Alec forces himself to speak, desperately trying to figure out what to say next. In a panic, Alec wonders what he is even supposed to do here and nearly blurts out a reckless thought before stopping himself. Alec all of a sudden wonders if Lishia recognized him earlier when their eyes met at the slave dealer, and he suspects it may go back to when he was still a hero. He right away crushes that thought as irrelevant to the crisis in front of him, while Lishia quietly reaches for his hand. Lishia shyly reveals that the moment she saw him, she felt certain he was her master and believed he was the person she had been waiting for. Alec is stunned and calls her name in disbelief as the room falls into even deeper silence. Lishia explains that she still had things she needed to do, but says she somehow forgot that mission, though she remembers being told to protect children and go to the orphanage. Alec realizes her memories are missing and asks if she truly cannot remember the mission at all. Lishia admits she does not really understand her lost mission, but she remembers that the children were precious to her and that she wanted to protect them. She sadly explains that her strength was not enough. The orphanage closed, and she believed everything she did had been meaningless. Even so, Lishia says that in that painful moment, she met her master. Alec carefully asks whether her mission might now be to protect him, but Lishia can only say that she does not know. Lishia clings to Alec and says she is happy now because she was able to meet her master, leaving him visibly shaken. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Alec realizes he has never known this kind of unconditional kindness before, and the emotion crashes into him all at once. The atmosphere all of a sudden turns dangerously tense, and as Alec startles in confusion, Lishia softly calls his name while the pressure becomes impossible to escape. They end up face to face at close range, both flushed and frozen as the moment turns intensely awkward. With the tension peaking, Alec braces himself over her while Lishia quietly says his name again, and the situation becomes deeply uncomfortable. Lishia blushes heavily and admits with vulnerable honesty that this is also unfamiliar to her, making the moment even more emotionally charged. As they remain close, Lishia hesitantly wonders if it is really all right for her to do this, while Alec nervously gulps and is overwhelmed by the situation. Alec later reflects that after that deeply awkward and overwhelming moment, his memory of what followed becomes hazy. He remembers being welcomed warmly into a place that felt almost like a hometown, while Lishia happily greeted him, and the memory takes on a dreamlike softness. The recollection turns chaotic as Lishia calls out to her master and says the pressure is becoming too much, while Alec remembers that the situation had become impossible to stop. Alec abruptly rejects that hazy recollection and insists that was not what happened at all. Back in the present, Alec jolts awake in room, flushed and confused, and realizes with alarm that it was not a dream. He quickly turns back in shock, the sudden movement revealing how shaken he is by what he has just remembered. He sees Lishia sleeping peacefully beside him, her gentle smile making the aftermath feel strangely calm despite his panic. Looking at her sleeping face, Alec is struck by how peaceful she appears, which only deepens his flustered reaction. Alec admits to himself that he would do anything for Lishia, revealing how deeply she has already affected him, but he forces himself to remember that what he needs right now is money, dragging his thoughts back to reality. Lishia clings to him and sleepily calls for her master, making Alec jolt at the sudden closeness. Startled and flustered, Alec hurriedly apologizes for waking her, but Lishia softly says his hand felt reassuring, leaving him even more embarrassed. Lishia greets him with a gentle good morning and warmly calls him her master, making the morning feel strangely peaceful despite his panic. Alec nervously tells Lishia they should get ready to head out soon, and she obediently agrees at once. As they prepare to leave, Alec recalls that even the slave trader had said the only proper work for a former hero like him was becoming an adventurer. Outside, Alec calls out that they will visit the weapon shop and then head to the guild, but he panics when he realizes Lishia may have still been changing, while she shyly says she does not mind if her master sees her. Walking through the royal capital, Lishia eagerly asks whether they should buy adventuring gear after this, and Alec answers yes. As they walk together, Lishia happily asks whether the food from earlier was delicious, while Alec admits that eating outdoors in a city is a first for him since he only camped in the wild during his hero days. Alec freezes as he wonders how he is even supposed to hold Lishia's hand while she stays close beside him. Remembering that Lishia grabbed his arm before, Alec nervously decides that, this time, he has to make the first move. As Alec hesitates, worried he might look awkward if he reaches for her hand, Lishia shyly tells him his hand feels a little clumsy, and he feels like he will never live down the embarrassment. Lishia looks at him with concern and asks whether her master is not enjoying himself. Flustered, Alec insists he is having the best time of his life, even as the situation leaves him completely overwhelmed. In the end, Lishia lets him hold her hand, and while he awkwardly accepts it, she cheerfully urges him on to the next store. Surrounded by the busy marketplace, Alec can only wonder whether this clingy behavior is really how slaves are supposed to act. With Lishia still pressed close to him, Alec internally spirals and wonders if they are always this attached. Seeing her happy expression, Alec admits to himself that she is so endearing that he is already starting to want to do this again. When Lishia brightly says she wants to do it with her master, Alec jolts in shock at her sudden words. Alec is thrown into confusion as he realizes Lishia now wants to do that with him too, and the thought leaves him reeling. When Lishia notices a shop offering potion making and says it looks interesting, Alec hurriedly agrees they can try making potions another time. Alec panics internally, insisting this cannot be happening when they had only just gone through that awkward moment the day before. Trying to recover, Alec tells himself to focus on buying gear, but Lishia cheerfully points out that the weapon shop is right in front of them. As Alec studies the store, suspicion creeps in and he feels that something about the merchandise does not seem reliable, prompting the shopkeeper to challenge whether he is insulting his goods. The weapon and armor shop owner takes offense and sharply asks whether Alec is implying that he is bad at choosing products. Alec quickly denies it and explains that he is searching for a weapon capable of storing magical energy, leading the owner to guess that he might be looking for a magic sword. Alec struggles to explain that he wants something suited to the hero's unique holy wave energy, but he cannot figure out how to put it into words. Lishia then says she thinks she knows what kind of weapon her master needs, drawing Alec's surprised attention as she carefully examines the rack. A moment later, Alec notices what Lishia has chosen, and she points out a sword that she confidently says looks good. The sword comes with a warning, as it is said to be a cursed blade that drains the magical energy of whoever wields it. Alec grips the sword without hesitation, and the shopkeeper nervously warns him not to pass out. Alec realizes the sword is absorbing his holy wave energy, yet he is surprised by how strangely natural it feels in his hand. The shopkeeper is stunned that anyone can handle the weapon at all, while Lishia proudly remarked that such a result is only to be expected from her master. With his decision made, Alec firmly declares that he will take the sword. As more equipment is brought up, Alec says he also needs a breastplate and leather armor for Lishia, and she gratefully thanks him while the shopkeeper protests at being told too many things at once. After the purchase, the shop gratefully thanks them for buying and says it was a pleasure to serve them. Outside, Alec tells Lishia that she saved him and helped him secure some good gear. Lishia happily says she is glad she could help her master, and Alec is left flustered by how endearing she is. Lishia points out the Adventurers Guild and urges that their next step is to register there, making Alec place his full trust in her. Alec and Lishia arrive at the Adventurers Guild and step inside. Inside, the guild is crowded and lively as adventurers and staff bustle through the hall. Alec takes in the building in surprise, realizing this is the Adventurers Guild, while Lishia quietly looks around with him. At the reception desk, a staff member cheerfully welcomes them and asks how she can help. Alec says he wants to register as an adventurer, and the receptionist explains that the fee is 50,000 goats per person. Alec calmly says he will pay for both of them, and the receptionist right away agrees and says they will now assess their abilities. As Alec and Lishia walk further in, the staff tells them to wait while the evaluation device is prepared, then asks if Alec is a rookie. Nearby adventurers look Alec over and dismiss him as ordinary, then turn their attention to Lishia and crudely assume she is beautiful and likely a healer. One of the men loudly laughs and calls out to Lishia, asking her to join his party instead. Lishia, unsettled by the attention, asks Alec what is wrong with those people. The masked adventurer dismisses the hecklers as worthless drunks who only act tough inside the Adventurers Guild. He all of a sudden rises from his seat, and the sharp movement makes Alec and Lishia stop and watch. The man throws the insult right back at them, making it clear he took the words personally. As the room turns toward him, he coldly remarks that someone really dared to say that. He steps right up to Alec, looks him over, and calls him a rookie. Alec apologetically clarifies that he was only speaking precisely because he sees himself as the same kind of cast-off. The man lashes out in anger, refusing any comparison and loudly declaring himself an A-rank adventurer. Alec stays calm, shields Lishia behind him, and asks if that display is really all an A-rank can do. The adventurer is visibly shaken, confused by the intense pressure Alec gives off. In the end, the man backs down, says he will let it slide for today, and walks off with a dismissive wave. Lishia called Alec her master and says his sudden attack on the rude adventurer was definitely deserved. She shyly adds that what he did earlier was genuinely impressive. Alec awkwardly insists it was nothing, then thanks her for waiting and asks whether anything happened while he was gone. A guild staff member moves things along and says they will now measure his magical energy. Alec is told to place his hand on the crystal, and he hesitantly agrees while Lishia watches from behind. As his hand touches the crystal, the staff member tells him to keep it there because the results will be ready soon. The crystal all of a sudden reacts, and the staff member stares in shock as the reading produces an unexpected response. Alec is left stunned when the result reveals a sacred attribute. The explanation follows that humans are normally born with one elemental attribute, but in rare cases, some are born with a sacred attribute that opposes the dark power of monsters and demons. It is further explained that heroes are chosen from among those who possess that rare sacred attribute and the power of holy waves. Alec thinks the sacred attribute may be rare, but not unique, and realizes the staff simply did not expect a former hero like him to appear there. Alec, Lishia, and the receptionist all freeze in confusion as the crystal reacts in a way none of them expected. The crystal bursts apart as violent magical energy surges through the room, and people shout in alarm about the wind and tell everyone to get down. The overflowing power tears through the guild hall, sending people and debris flying while Alec shields Lishia amid the chaos. In the middle of the destruction, Alec holds Lishia close to protect her, and she looks overwhelmed by how all of a sudden he moved to cover her. Alec urgently checks whether Lishia is okay. Flustered but relieved, Lishia says she is fine and thanks her master. As the rec room falls silent, the surrounding adventurers stare and wonder whether that supposed rookie is really normal, while someone asks if everyone is alright. Shaken witnesses are left terrified and can only wonder who Alec really is. Alec apologizes awkwardly while the receptionist explains that what just happened was an abnormal surge of magical power. A shaken witness stares at the shattered floor and concludes that Alec is unbelievably dangerous. The stunned adventurers panic as they say they cannot believe how much sacred power Alec has. Note that only the guildmaster has ever shattered a crystal before, and wonder if he is really just a normal man. Alec realizes they are saying he had even more sacred power than a normal person should, and he quietly questions what that really means. Amid the scattered debris, the guild announces that Alec's registration is complete. Alec studies his card in surprise and sees that he has been registered as a magic swordsman with high physical and mental stats, overwhelming magical power, yet the starting adventurer rank of F. Alec reflects that even though he possesses enormous magical power, he cannot use magic, and he bitterly wonders if that is why he was removed as a hero. Alec turns to Lishia and tells her that it is now her turn. Nervous and unsure, Lishia hesitantly asks whether this is really okay. Lishia presents her card and reveals that she is a healer with balanced B-rank abilities across the board, while her adventurer rank also begins at F. The guild informs Alec and Lishia that their adventurer registration is now complete, and tells them they can begin taking missions from the quest board. Lishia gives Alec an encouraging wink and cheers him on with a wish for good luck. As they leave the guild, Alec states that they will start taking missions tomorrow. Lishia nervously calls to Alec as he notices her hesitation and asks what is wrong. Pulling close and speaking in a shaken whisper, Lishia shyly asks whether he would spend time with her today, and the sudden request leaves Alec stunned. Flushed with embarrassment, Lishia trembles and struggles to face him while Alec reacts in complete panic. Alec, red-faced and overwhelmed, realizes she is asking for something important and difficult to answer calmly. After a tense pause, Alec steels himself and says they have no other choice, then agrees that he will do it. Time passes quietly as the scene shifts away from them. Later, Alec stands under running water, trying to collect himself in the bath. While bathing, Alec decides that today he will head back to the guild and finally take his first quest. Alec steels himself, deciding he has to stay strong for Lirishia's sake. When something bumps against his back, Alec freezes in alarm. The sudden contact throws Alec completely off balance, and his mind goes blank for a moment. By the next day at the guild, Alec and Lishia scan requests ranging from medicinal herb gathering to goblin extermination, monster hunting, and even dungeon work. Alec suggests they start with a gathering or extermination quest in the same area to build experience first, and Lishia quickly agrees. Alec rules out goblins because he has never fought one and does not know their habits, then adds that wolves hunt in packs and would be difficult for one person to handle. The moment he spots a quest to defeat a Hellrich for 100,000 gort, Alec focuses on the reward and eagerly declares that this is the one. Lishia looks uneasy and points out that the target sounds like a powerful monster, asking if he is truly sure about this choice. Alec confidently insists there is no problem because the monster is surprisingly weak, adding that he has fought one before, which leaves Lishia impressed by what she takes as her master's experience. Then Alec all of a sudden tenses and cries out at something unexpected, his expression hardening again. A burly adventurer loudly calls attention to the fact that Alec chose the Hellrich request, instantly turning the entire guild's focus toward him and Lishia. The man mocks Alec as an inexperienced rookie and sneers that yesterday's pressure must have been his imagination, making his contempt unmistakable. Alec glances over in irritation and wonders what the man wants from him this time. The adventurer warns that even he, a mighty steel-ranked fighter, sees the Hellrich as a formidable foe, but Alec coldly replies that his chosen request is none of that man's business. The man insists Alec has no chance against the Hellrich because he is only low rank, then crudely belittles him under the guise of a warning. Done entertaining him, Alec tells Lishia they are leaving and says he does not need the man's concern, and Lishia quietly agrees. In the very next moment, the air turns violent as Lishia cries out when the man stops them by force. The adventurer grabs Lishia and snarls that if Alec wants to die, he should go alone, claiming she is too valuable to be dragged into it. As Lishia struggles and begs to be released, the man twists out a grin and declares that he will be the one to take responsibility for her, turning the situation threatening. Alec faces him with chilling calm and orders him to let her go at once, warning that obeying is the only way he walks away. The adventurer laughs in Alec's face and taunts that no matter how tough he acts in front of a woman, his shaken proves it is all an act, then mockingly tells the old man not to overdo it. As Lishia cries out, the man abruptly relents and says he will let her go. But he right away demands something in return, ordering Alec to leave the girl behind and disappear, and Alec fires back that the man is a coward. In the next instant, a heavy blow slams straight into Alec with explosive force. The entire guild erupts in shocked chatter as the adventurer realizes Alec took the hit head-on, and the onlookers nervously wonder if he is dead because the impact looked that severe. Staring in disbelief, the man cannot understand why Alec is still standing and compares him to an unmoving mountain. From the heart of that tense silence, Alec coldly reminds him that he had been warned. Alec grabs the man and declares with chilling force that he must never touch Lishia again. Even with fear flashing across his face, the adventurer still tries to save face and tells Alec not to get cocky. Alec ends it in an instant, driving a devastating punch into the man's face and blasting him away. The hulking adventurer is hurled across the guild hall with a violent crash, leaving everyone stunned by how instantly the fight is decided. Reeling in pain and disbelief, the man twitches violently and cries out in shock as he realizes what just happened to him. The surrounding adventurers stare in amazement and whisper that Alec dropped the steel bar trial with a single strike, wondering if that supposed old man is actually A rank. Alec stares at his own hand in confusion and quietly judges the result to be far weaker than expected. The battered adventurer blurts out that holy wave energy should be healing power, then bitterly concludes that Alec could never become a real hero if he is this weak. Before anything can escalate further, a woman from the guild steps in and sharply reminds them that fighting inside the guild is strictly forbidden, demanding to know what they think they are doing. Alec panics inwardly, realizing that if this causes trouble and gets him banned from adventuring, he will not be able to stay with Lishia and desperately needs an excuse. Under Cordelia's cold stare, Alec awkwardly claims that his hand merely slipped, leaving Lishia and everyone else blinking at the flimsy explanation. The room drops into uneasy silence for a beat, then several onlookers visibly tremble as they process his absurd excuse and the overwhelming force behind that accidental strike. The adventurers right away play along with nervous laughter, saying the man had already mentioned feeling unwell and that he simply collapsed dramatically, while others joke that A-rank strength sends people flying. Cordelia accepts that the excuse will do and tells them to carry Bariah to the treatment room. The guild breaks into relief as everyone realizes Alec's excuse actually worked, and Alec thanks them in a flustered voice for saving him. One adventurer nervously warns that someone who can knock out a dangerous A-rank in one hit is not someone they should provoke. Alec lets out an awkward laugh and privately wonders whether the man might simply have been weak. Lishia stays close to Alec and happily urges him to hurry so they can leave for their quest. Alec notices how happy Lishia looks, gets flustered by her expression, and shyly agrees that they should get going. Their first quest sends them to the southeastern Raven Forest to gather 10 red mushrooms and hunt 1 Hellrich, while Lishia turns sharply focused on the search. Lishia excitedly finds another red mushroom, and Alec is amazed by her eyesight as he realizes she keeps spotting rare ones too. Watching her work, Alec wonders if that incredible vision is also part of her angelic power. Alec stares in open admiration and sincerely tells Lishia that she is amazing, then quietly admits he wishes he had met her sooner. Alec shyly tells Lishia that if he has more adventures with her, he can support her even more and make things easier. Lishia blushes and quietly asks him to keep helping her again tonight too. Alec, right away, flusteredly promises to help her every day until her angelic powers return, and Lishia answers with devoted obedience. Afterward, Alec notices something is wrong and points out that not a single monster has appeared in the forest, not even the Hellrich they came to hunt, despite the place being known for monsters. He reasons that the forest is close to the royal capital, so many adventurers may have already cleared the area, while Lishia cheerfully notes that the mushroom gathering is already complete. Even so, Alec worries that the real issue is the missing Hellrich and blames himself for naively choosing the quest based on how easy it sounded. He then asks Lishia what a Hellrich is supposed to look like. Lishia explains that a Hellrich is a high-level undead sorcerer born from darkness, basically a skeleton still clinging to a body and usually dressed in robes, and Alec reacts that it sounds very strong. When Alec asks if that makes it dangerous, Lishia admits the search may be a little risky, but says that if she transforms into her angelic form, she should be able to find it. Lishia then reveals that fallen angels are treated as monsters, so if anyone sees her transformed state, it would cause trouble, and she nervously fidgets under the weight of that concern. Lishia softly tells Alec not to worry, though nervous tension still lingers on her face. Alec firmly assures her that no matter what happens, he will protect Lishia. Lishia lowers her gaze, blushes, and quietly thanks him. She steadies herself, gathers power, and begins the search for real. Lishia unleashes a dark magic detection spell, and her transformed state fills the forest with overwhelming presence. Alec stares in shock and privately wonders why her wings are so striking. A violent gust tears outward through the forest as the detection magic sweeps across the area. The search catches its target, and the hidden Hellrich is finally exposed among the trees. Lishia urgently reports that she found the Hellrich, but warns Alec that it has already noticed them too. As the enemy begins casting blaze, Lishia reacts instantly and warns Alec that magic is coming. Lishia right away casts a grand angelic shield array and spreads a powerful barrier around them. The incoming attack crashes into her barrier, and Alec is startled as she blocks the magic head-on. Cracks race across the shield as Lishia strains to hold it together and admits she cannot maintain it much longer. Then, the defense gives way in a violent impact, and Alec shouts Lishia's name as she cries out from the blast. Alec rushes to her side and asks if she is alright, and despite her weakened state, Lishia confirms that the Hellrich is behind the small hut. Alec locks his eyes on the direction she indicated, while Lishia warns that if they keep going like this, another magic strike will come. Alec tells Lishia not to worry, saying that now that they know the direction, they can still manage. As he moves, Lishia realizes in alarm that the second wave is already coming. Alec lunges forward just as the next attack arrives and forces his way through the danger in a single burst. With his resolve hardened, Alec declares that he is going in. Lishia hesitates for a moment, then quietly accepts his resolve. Alec erupts in anger and declares that he will never forgive Hellrich for ambushing Lishia. As movement flashes through the trees, Alec instantly realizes the enemy is casting magic again. Hidden figures call directions to each other from the forest, and Alec tracks their positions as the sounds of impacts close in around him. Alec spots Hellrich near the hut and shouts that he has finally found him. Hellrich unleashes a grand dark fireball, sending a massive magical attack hurtling down at Alec. Alec takes the hit while charging forward and cries out as the blast crashes into him. Through the smoke, the enemy wonders whether the attack worked, then coldly warns that even dodging would not have saved Alec. Alec bursts from the smoke at full speed, wounded but still charging straight at Hellrich. With blood on his face and his eyes locked ahead, Alec declares that this is the end for Hellrich. Alec unleashes a holy wave slash, and the sacred strike tears straight to the enemy's head. The skeletal foe reels in panic as it realizes its magic is no longer working. Alec all of a sudden remembers an important detail and zeroes in on what that means. Looking down at the fallen enemy, Alec notes that it is the kind that keeps recovering as long as its bones reconnect, while the creature weakly begs him to stop. Alec recalls from his time as a hero that high-ranking clerics would remove Hellrich's core from the chest area. Reaching into the chest, Alec finds the object near the heart and realizes this must be the core. As the ground rumbles, Alec struggles to pull it free and realizes his strength is fading. The enemy desperately tells him to stop, but Alec pushes through the resistance as cracks begin to spread. With a final burst of effort, Alec tears the core out and exhales sharply as the enemy collapses. Watching it fall into his hand, Alec realizes the extracted core is far larger than he expected. The defeated Hellrich falls apart in disbelief, unable to accept that Alec was the one who brought it down. Then Alec hears Lishia call his name and turns sharply in surprise. Lishia rushes over and right away uses high-level recovery magic, putting everything she has into healing him. Alec freezes as the healing surges through him and realizes something strange is happening. His injuries vanish completely, and he stares in shock as his body all of a sudden feels light again. Relieved, Alec thanks Lishia and says having a healer is invaluable, but then he notices her shaken and calls her name in concern. Lishia tearfully scolds him for charging in so recklessly, saying his attack with no plan nearly stopped her heart, and begging him never to push himself that far again. Still standing close, Lishia explains that Hellrich uses one of the ultimate forms of destructive magic, while Alec awkwardly insists that if he can survive the hit, he only has to endure it until the enemy gives out. Lishia is left speechless as she realizes Alec's attack could even shatter her angelic defensive barrier in a single blow. Alec casually suggests that Hellrich might simply have been weak, and Lishia can barely believe how lightly he says it. Alec notices Lirishia's wings have gone dull and asks if Hellrich caused it, making her freeze as she looks at him. As one of her feathers drifts away, Lishia says she likely overused her angelic power, while Alec anxiously asks what they should do and whether she can recover. Lishia explains that if she receives Alec's holy wave energy again, she believes she can return to normal. Alec right away apologizes for forgetting that and urges them to head back at once. But Lishia quickly tells him to wait. Lishia stops him and suggests they inspect Hellrich's house first, adding that there might be treasure hidden inside. Alec pauses and awkwardly admits that, as a former hero who used to leave that sort of thing to subordinates, he completely forgot about searching the place. Alec realizes that with Lirishia's finger telescope, they should be able to spot any hidden treasure with ease. Lishia brightens at once and happily tells him to leave it to her. After searching the house, they discover there are no especially valuable items anywhere inside. Looking around the interior, they question whether this was really Hellrich's base at all, since it feels more like an ordinary private villa than a mage's headquarters. They remember the remaining clue their master mentioned, realizing that a Hellrich is an undead monster created from a mage. Alec quickly tells Lishia to stay behind him, warning that they have no idea what could still be lurking nearby, and she nervously answers at once. As the atmosphere tightens, Alec anxiously asks if Lishia is alright, while she insists she is fine and he wonders if the house belongs to someone deeply sinister. Spotting something suspicious above, Alec decides to open the upper section first and carefully pulls the handles. The instant the top opens, the structure erupts with a violent rumble from within. Startled by the sudden blast, they realize there is a hidden entrance there, and Lishia blurts out in shock that it leads to a dungeon. Faced with the hidden passage, Alec turns to Lishia and asks what they should do and whether they should go in. Lishia says they were not prepared for this today and suggests going back and returning later, while Alec agrees and asks if they should report it to the guild. Lishia points out that some of Hellrich's treasure is probably inside and says it would be best to secure that first. Alec smiles and praises Lishia for being truly reliable. As Alec pats her head, Lishia blushes and quietly thanks him, while he reacts with mild surprise. By the end of the day, the appraised items bring in a reward totaling 1.2 million gote. Alec reflects that this was the kind of quest where they could make use of their master's power, and says that without Lishia he never would have found the Hellrich, while noting that it is not the kind of stable work where they can clear every request. Lishia adds that the guild members are also part of the reason. Lishia all of a sudden presents the Hellrich's core, and Alec stares in shock as he asks whether she got it herself. Around them, people are stunned that he really defeated a Hellrich, call him amazing, and one relieved adventurer admits he is glad he never picked a fight with Alec. Alec asks if that means she did not actually think it was just a coincidence that he happened to run into a weak one. Lishia tells him there is a huge misunderstanding there, leaving Alec confused. Struggling to explain, Lishia says the real issue is that weak monsters like goblins do not appear around him, that the Hellrich only seemed weak to him, and that their master often failed while he was the hero Alec. Alec realizes the reason may be that his master's holy wave energy is overwhelmingly vast, and he repeats the idea in disbelief. Lishia explains that Alec's holy wave energy is so immense that it is constantly leaking out, leaving him stunned. Alec reacts in alarm and asks if it is really okay for that power to be leaking from him nonstop. Lishia says that leaking energy has likely formed a kind of barrier around him, which is why even the Hellrich's ultimate magic could not affect him, and Alec is shocked by how absurd it sounds. She adds that monsters around C rank and below would most likely vanish completely if they came within about 50 meters of him, and Alec can only repeat the idea in disbelief. Alec starts connecting this explanation to what used to happen during his time as a hero. He recalls arriving at mission sites again and again, only to fail because there were no monsters left, realizing they had already disappeared before he could even find them. Looking back, Alec concludes that he had mistaken it for enemies fleeing, when in reality his overwhelming holy wave energy had been erasing monster attacks everywhere he went. Overcome with gratitude, Alec grabs Lishia's shoulders and excitedly thanks her, saying this is exactly what he would expect from her. Looking flustered, Lishia asks Alec to stay by her side and keep teaching her. Alec warmly accepts, saying that will be his mission, and Lishia happily agrees as they stand together in the street. Lishia says that, unlike with monsters, standing at her master's side makes her feel reassured and calm. Flustered, Alec asks if she has been holding onto his arm all this time to receive the leaking holy wave energy, and she confirms it so directly that he is left speechless. As Alec pulls back in confusion, Lishia looks embarrassed, and the moment turns awkward when he reacts by quickly loosening his hold. Looking embarrassed and vulnerable, Lishia quietly asks whether that is a problem. Alec hurriedly says they should head to the inn for the day and adds that they still need to restore her wings to white, while Lishia says she is counting on her former hero's strength. The scene shifts away from them and introduces the current hero, Marius. Alone indoors, Marius stares down in disbelief and insists that his failed mission must be some mistake caused by bad luck. Trying to steady himself, Marius declares that he is a hero and claims he is talented unlike Alec, even as his confidence visibly wavers. Muttering to himself, Marius repeats that he is a hero and insists he is fundamentally different from someone like Alec. Before he can settle himself, a knock all of a sudden comes at the door. The door creaks open as someone announces that they are coming in. A nun enters quietly and calls out to Lord Marius, finding him seated with his back turned. She reports that the king is furious, especially after Marius failed to defeat even a wyvern despite leading such a large squad. The criticism continues as the king condemns Marius for making the title of hero look pathetic and helpless against weaker monsters. In open anger, the king demands to know how someone like Marius could be called a hero, and declares that this never happened with Alec. The nun tries to soften the blow by saying today's attempt to subdue the wyvern was a failure, but she believes they were underprepared and says they will surely defeat it tomorrow. Marius abruptly rejects the word failure, insisting that today was merely reconnaissance. He smoothly shifts the mood by praising the nun's preparation, asking her name, and warmly repeating that Sophia is a wonderful name. Marius says scouting today was the right call, because it clearly showed what they were lacking. He then asks Sophia to go to the church right away and buy 100 bottles of holy water for warding off evil, brushing aside her shock that it is already night. When Marius asks what the difference is between him and Alec, Sophia firmly says there are countless differences between them. Marius answers with a smug smile that the only correct answer is that he is the hero, and Alec is not. Spreading his arms, Marius declares that a hero is a special being appointed by the king and presses Sophia to acknowledge it while she hesitantly agrees. As he reaches toward her, Marius insists that this is simply how things are, and the atmosphere turns deeply uncomfortable. At close range, Marius gives his regards using the wrong name, and Sophia nervously corrects him that her name is Sophia. Sophia quickly excuses herself and leaves, while Marius casually tells her to take care as the door shuts behind her. Left alone, Marius grinds his teeth and rages that everyone dares to talk back to him, then bitterly complains that such weaklings cannot even defeat monsters without the new hero. Outside the room, Sophia can only let out a strange sound as she stands shaken in the hallway. Looking out at the night, Sophia quietly wishes Alec were here instead. Overcome with emotion, Sophia breaks down in tears. In a deeply awkward private moment, Sophia nervously asks him to continue helping her. Flushed and vulnerable, Sophia says that if her wings ever turn black, she wants to be helped again. The next morning, the two sit together at breakfast, both weighed down by what happened. Staring at the meal in front of her, Sophia reddens and falls into confusion, unable to process any of it. He notices how unusual her reaction is and awkwardly asks whether something happened. Startled, Sophia breathes sharply and right away asks what he means by that, fixating on the innkeeper. As they head out, the innkeeper politely thanks them for their patronage. With a knowing grin, the innkeeper clearly focuses on the two of them together. The innkeeper bluntly remarks that they were noisy last night and says their voices could be heard all the way downstairs, leaving both of them mortified. Overwhelmed by the embarrassment, he decides they need to buy or rent a house at once. Sophia shyly agrees that if things work out, they could stay together more freely, and her eager tone makes the moment even more awkward. She admits in a quiet, embarrassed voice that she does not want anyone but Rin to hear her, making her feelings painfully obvious. As Sophia eats, Rin is overwhelmed by how devoted she is to him and resolves that he must properly support and protect her. Trying to act practical, Rin all of a sudden asks how much it would cost to buy or rent a house, and Sophia says it depends on the location. She explains that in the royal capital, renting even a single room starts at 70,000 goatee, while buying would cost around $1 million or more, which shocks him. Rin right away asks whether living in the countryside would be cheaper instead. Sophia confirms that it is cheaper there, saying rent is around 20,000 and a house in the suburbs can be bought for about 300,000. Still smiling, she adds that the trade-off is the danger of monster attacks. Rin realizes this is a life-changing choice and says the location will need very careful consideration. He admits that even as an adventurer he cannot judge the best areas, so for now he decides they should focus on renting until their lives become more stable. Sophia agrees at once that his plan is the right one, and her quick reply shows she fully supports him. Rin firmly decides that once they finish exploring the Hellrich dungeon, they will find a place to live, and Sophia reacts with relieved surprise at his resolve. Rin says he wants to cherish Lishia, then admits the innkeeper is really starting to get on his nerves, showing how serious he is. Red with embarrassment, Rin confesses that he cannot bear letting anyone else hear Lishia either. Sophia quietly thanks him, visibly touched by what he just said. With that decisive note, the matter is settled. Sophia happily holds on to him and cheers him on, while Rin urges them onward to the Hellrich dungeon. The scene shifts to Hellrich's shack. Inside the bare enclosed room, a metallic clang all of a sudden rings out as something appears or strikes the floor. A mysterious glowing object remains before them, while a voice murmurs that it is still not enough. When they arrive at a building buzzing with activity, Sophia excitedly suggests gathering medicinal herbs, mushrooms, and even blue quail eggs. Rin admits he never expected dungeon visits to involve gathering information too, then praises Larishia's reliability, and Sophia beams just as nearby adventurers begin whispering about a rumor. The talk around them turns unsettling as people claim Hellrich has been spotted even in the royal capital and in distant places, while others insist there are real eyewitnesses. Rin doubts Hellrich could have reached the capital that quickly, and Sophia nervously wonders if this might be someone different from the one they defeated yesterday. As they move through the capital, the rumor grows more vivid, with people saying Hellrich wears a red robe and a black skull, and that anyone who sees him should run, prompting Rin to mutter how dangerous the capital sounds. Sophia quietly points out that those details are exactly how Hellrich was identified, and Rin can only agree uneasily. Pushing past the unnerving rumor, Sophia says they should still explore the dungeon carefully, and when Rin mentions how dark dungeons can be, she urges him to buy a lantern first. Out in the field, Sophia politely asks to take one egg for the quest as she reaches toward a nest. She proudly announces that the gathering quest is finished and suggests they have dinner, while Rin awkwardly agrees despite the inconvenient angle. Flushed and apologizing for making him wait, Sophia shyly asks if they should get going. Sophia answers eagerly, but the moment turns clumsy when she all of a sudden stumbles with a startled cry. Rin catches Sophia as she falls against him, and both freeze in embarrassed silence as the distance between them vanishes. Sophia shyly thanks Rin for catching her, and he can only answer nervously while both become painfully aware of how close they are. Sophia quickly says they should get moving, while Rin is left reeling from the misunderstanding and the tension of the moment. Later, they sit beneath the trees and spread out their meal, and Rin reacts with surprise at how impressive the food looks. Rin enthusiastically praises every dish and declares that Lishia can do anything, clearly blown away by how good the meal is. Lishia happily says she is glad her master is pleased, savoring the quiet moment as they share the meal together. They finish eating and give thanks for the meal in unison. Rin leans back, full and satisfied, and sincerely thanks Lishia for the food. As they get ready to continue, Rin suggests that only the two of them should enter the dungeon after eating, leaving Sophia startled and asking if something is wrong. Rin calls for Lishia, and she right away answers her master while nervously clutching his hand. With an intense look, Rin all of a sudden suggests doing some exercise after dinner. Lishia is startled and flustered that they would do that here, while Rin reasons that it should be easier to move around in the open. Blushing but obedient, Lishia says she understands and starts to comply, leaving Rin baffled. She slowly begins preparing in a way that makes the atmosphere abruptly awkward and uncomfortable. Rin panics as he realizes Lishia may have completely misunderstood what kind of exercise he meant, then desperately tries to correct himself. Lishia, still flushed, says this spot feels too exposed and suggests they move into the bushes instead. Caught off guard, Rin gulps and hurriedly agrees that they should go right away, while Lishia simply answers yes. In a tense tone, Lishia tells her master that she wants to stay close, making the moment even more inappropriate. The exchange is abruptly cut off by a loud disturbance in the forest, and both of them snap back in alarm at the worst possible moment. A wyvern all of a sudden dives from the sky, and Rin freezes as the interruption becomes instant danger. The creature reveals itself unmistakably as a wyvern, confirming the threat bearing down on them. Rin realizes this is exactly the monster tied to the extermination request, then groans at how terrible the timing is. Though rattled, Rin accepts that they have no choice but to fight. He urgently tells Lishia to stay back because it is dangerous, while bitterly noting that their precious time together has been ruined. Instead of retreating, Lishia trembles, adjusts herself, and leaves Rin confused by her sudden reaction. Overcome with emotion, Lishia furiously declares that the creature dared interrupt her time with her master, startling Rin with a burst of unusual anger. Lishia firmly says to leave this to her. She spreads her wings and launches straight at the wyvern, vowing to handle it herself while Rin shouts after her in alarm. As the wyvern rumbles menacingly, Lishia charges first, determined to seize control of the battle. Lishia glares ahead and furiously declares that she will never forgive the wyvern for interrupting them. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Rin stares in shock as the attack tears into the monster, unable to process what he is witnessing. The wyvern crashes violently through the area and slams down near the buildings while Rin watches the sudden destruction unfold. Even badly hit, the wyvern lets out a harsh cry and shows it is still ready to keep fighting. Rin right away steadies himself and prepares to join in as the wounded wyvern thrashes across the ground. He dashes forward at full speed and closes the distance in one decisive burst. Using Holy Wave, Rin cuts through the wyvern with a powerful finishing strike. As the beast collapses, Rin notes that it was unusually sluggish and wonders if his holy aura had affected it. Rin praises Lishia's angelic power as incredible, and admits he was genuinely stunned that she brought down a wyvern in a single blow, leaving her flustered by the compliment. Lishia blushes and explains that the holy aura she received from Rin the night before had been so strong that it left a deep impression on her. Looking embarrassed, she admits she has already used up that power and quietly suggests they may need to resume what they were doing earlier. Rin right away understands, and in the hush of the forest the moment turns private and tense as they draw close once more.